Hi, good day everyone. Thank you so much for joining our webinar today. My name is Alex, and today I'm going to be discussing with you guys the new Ubiquiti EFG. Um, as always with our webinars, please feel free to ask questions at any point in time. Any suggestions in terms of future content is also most welcome. This is going to be a little bit of a shorter webinar than normal. We're going to be very product focused, so it'll be a little bit shorter. As with all of our webinars, this one will also be recorded, so if you need to hop off at any point in time to attend to something, you're more than welcome to grab the recording afterwards. It will be automatically emailed out to everyone as well. With that being said, we can delve straight into it. I think before we do that, I just want to confirm that you guys can actually hear me. So if I can get a thumbs up or just someone to comment something in the chat, that would be a good indicator that everything's working. Ah, perfect. Thank you, guys. Everyone's everyone's awake at least. Awesome. Okay, so getting into it. So we'll start the session with a bit of a recap. It's not going to be too much time spent on it, but there's many new partners on this call. And I just want to quickly do a little bit of a refresher how Ubiquiti is positioning their products. So basically, Ubiquiti is continuing on this journey of unifying the different technology stacks that we see and use in our day-to-day life. And basically, the idea behind it is to manage everything through a single pane of glass. I know that adage has been used a lot throughout the years, and it's probably getting a bit jaded, but with Ubiquiti, that really is the truth. Everything can be managed through a single pane of glass, and they're trying to bring together multiple different ecosystems into one environment. The big goal here is also to continue to offer all of these services in a single pane of glass, license free. Ubiquiti has a big push towards doing everything license free, and we continue to see this even with the new products that they are launching. The only place I can see this changing possibly in future is through their paid security definitions. So we're going to discuss this a little bit later on, but I'll explain why they might introduce licensing on that. But for setup, management, and control of your devices, and ongoing support of those devices, that will continue to be license free. As a quick overview of their broad technology stack and how far this stretches. This is basically just a quick overview of the different products that they offer in each segment. So the main focus here, and has been for the last 5 years, is the focus on the cloud gateways. The EFG, or the Ubiquiti Enterprise Fortress Gateway, is also in effect also a cloud gateway. So similar to how we've seen the UDM Pros, etc., we are just seeing an evolution of that through the introduction of the Enterprise Fortress Gateway. And basically what this is, it is the primary thing for connecting all of your downstream Ubiquiti devices as well as your client devices. So in effect, it's a gateway. It's a gateway to the internet, and it is responsible for also providing your security functionality, and basically providing connectivity to everything downstream from there. So when we design solutions, we typically start from the gateway down. So we'll typically start with a UDM Pro or EFG in this instance, and then we'll add on Wi-Fi access points, switching, cameras, access control, etc. So everything basically bolts on from there. So before we get into that, we're going to see the different components within the ecosystem in a moment. But basically just to again highlight the positioning of the EFG. So the EFG is a complete departure from the rest of the Unify stack. Sure, it still uses the same interface. Everyone knows and loves it. Can still be used with all of the Ubiquiti devices. But in terms of its product focus, it's very much focused on enterprise. It is got a lot more resiliency options. It's a completely different set of technologies that are built into this, and we're going to see these features as we progress through this. So each of these technology stacks allow you to connect through to your different gateways or controllers. We used to call them controllers, it's more of a gateway. and basically they can connect up to that. So one notable thing to mention here is that the EFG only supports the network product stack. So that basically means the Wi-Fi access points and switches can be connected to the EFG. It does not inherently have support for the cameras or the door access systems. Obviously, there's ways around this. I mean, you can do an NVR if you want to add cameras onto it, etc. So there is ways to do that, but the EFG itself is purely capable of managing and controlling the access points, switches, and everything that's part of the network portion. And obviously the connecting client devices as well to a certain extent. So some key points that Ubiquiti have as goals for their new products. I feel this is important to just explain where Ubiquiti is heading with these products. So the first thing, and obviously, as most of you will attest, is the ease of use. So same GUI for everything. If you've worked on a Ubiquiti product before, you'll know how to work on pretty much any of their other products, and they continue to do this moving forward. And in the same breath, the EFG uses virtually the same interface as the UDM Pro or UDM Pro SE or the Dreamwall. It looks, functions, and feels identical. There is a couple of additional features that are added on that you'll only see in the EFG, and we'll show you these features, especially when it comes to the SSL inspection and stuff like that. I'm going to show that to you in a second, but in terms of the GUI, it is virtually the same. Another big thing is actionability. So Ubiquiti have really paid attention to what the MSPs and resellers are saying, and basically a lot of the feedback from the technicians that actually have to use the gear is that they want to be able to proactively manage and drill down into specific alerts or specific actions. I've sat in national operational centers. I've seen the reports that, that everyone keeps using. It's these massive wall boards with millions of lines of codes that resemble the matrix. It can be really difficult to pick up stuff that you need to action versus stuff that is not important. So with Ubiquiti, it's super simple. The reports are super easy. I will say it's top notch. They're even introducing new features for monitoring ISPs, etc., which we're going to show you again a little bit later on. Of course, scale is still very important. They do everything from SMB all the way up to 10,000 plus devices on a single site, and everything in between. Really depends on what you want. Advanced functionality. So I have to commend Ubiquiti on this. They keep adding loads of new features, and they consistently adding new stuff. We've just seen them starting to introduce NAT options and OSPF, etc., into their existing products. I have to commend them on the fact that I'm not paying for those updates. This is something that is included as part of my hardware purchase, which is unique in the industry. So zero charge for these changes, which is very unique. And then, of course, like I said before, license free. Normally, vendors charge an ongoing fee for supporting the devices and continuing to develop software. With Ubiquiti, they just continue to develop new features for the existing product stacks, which is extremely different to the rest of the industry. So, like I said, consistency in the user experience is massive, and that's something that they are really good at. If you've set up an Ubiquiti access point before, you can probably set up a Ubiquiti camera, and that's a massive departure from traditional CCTV systems, where if you've got one set of skills, it's very difficult to carry over to the next. With Ubiquiti, it is all part of the same ecosystem and therefore shares the same user interfaces or similar user interfaces. Super easy to actually use with. I feel like tech people often frown on Ubiquiti for their friendly user interface. Speaking with a lot of technicians in the training, a lot of the times I get feedback that they love the simplicity, but they are worried about the lack of granular control. And one of the key things that we typically see after training is people telling me, hey, I didn't actually know Ubiquiti could do all of this. So even though it's GUI based, you can still do all the granular control that you need out of a traditional competing vendor. So the stuff that you're looking for is there, although it's just access through a menu. And I agree to that. I don't want to have a CLI experience if I can avoid it. So Ubiquiti is continuing to add new functionality on this front as well. And the basic recommendation I have, especially if you're new to Ubiquiti, is to try their controllers. So see what the user interface is like and see how easy it is to set up. Another massive area of focus for Ubiquiti is improvements into their site manager. So site manager is the central place through which you'll see all of the Ubiquiti controllers as well as their cloud gateways, correct word for it, and they're connecting downstream devices from there, so switches, access points, etc. The big emphasis for Ubiquiti in this site manager, especially moving forward, is the emphasis on applying settings in bulk and at scale. This is a little bit different to how people have been using it right now. Most of the time, if you want to apply changes, you will have to go into that cloud gateway, go make configuration changes, and then go to the next site to do the same thing. So with the changes Ubiquiti are implementing, the first big one is that they are now unifying all of the gateways so that they are reachable through the site manager. So irrespective of whether you're using a cloud gateway, a cloud console, one of the unified hosting options, or even if you're hosting it yourself, it is all visible, manageable through the site manager. You don't have to have a separate login or separate page to do this. Some of the stuff that they've added on recently on this is the site groups function as well. So you can now logically group your sites together. So if you have a bunch of, let's say, food outlets that all share a common owner, you can group them together and apply changes in bulk to them. You can bundle your sites and basically apply settings to them. And the same thing that we're seeing for this applies to the EFG as well. It's managed through exactly the same way. Another new thing that they've just added on is the ability to do bulk firmware changes. So especially useful if you're combining this with site groups where you have, let's say, one specific set of customers that you want to apply a new version of the access point firmware to, and you want to apply that in bulk. So these firmware changes are now possible through the site manager. You don't have to go into each individual site to make changes. Another new thing is the new ISP viewer. And what this is, it's just a simplified interface to show you how your ISPs are performing. It's a very cool tool for proactive monitoring. If your customers tell you, hey, we're having Wi-Fi problems, more often than not, those problems typically relate to something upstream. So it could be your carrier, and that ISP viewer is a good way to see if it's the connection between your cloud gateway to the ISP or if it's something internal. Ubiquiti have also even introduced a API. So this is going to be used for health and performance monitoring, uptime checking, client counts, and a whole lot more. That API should be available to everyone now, I believe. If you're not seeing all of these options through the site manager, you might need to enroll for the early access version of the site manager. But this is the stuff that's coming, and Ubiquiti has a massive focus on the site manager capabilities they're expanding on this. Basically, they want to make it easy for admins to do work on multiple sites at the same time. Along with that, they're also introducing more alerting options as well. So these can push through to the designated site administrators as we'd expect, so they can instantly know if a customer is having problems. At a glance, you can see everything is as it should be across multiple sites, for example. So in this instance, we can see the internet health across all of my sites looks fine, except for one where there was a brief period of outage. As an IT administrator, that's a super powerful tool. I can know if my customer is having problems, sometimes even before my customer is aware of it, which is really what we need in the IT world. Of course, we still need to have granular control over what the site admins actually have access to as well. And with Ubiquiti, we continue to have the ability to set very granular access control methods. So irrespective of whether this is an EFG or UDM or whatever it is, you can control what that person has access to, and it's super easy to apply changes to those users as well. There's a massive increase in usability, and the user enrollment experience has also gotten a lot better over the years as well. So now on to the main star of this webinar. So the Ubiquiti Enterprise Fortress Gateway, or the EFG for short. So Ubiquiti has a massive focus on enterprise. They were pretty clear about this at the Ubiquiti World Conference as well. Um, we've always said that Ubiquiti works in enterprise, but now, especially with the introduction of the EFG, Ubiquiti is introducing devices that are specifically designed for enterprise. So it's not just usable in enterprise, it is designed with enterprise in mind. Part of the problem with designing for enterprise has always been, what do you define as enterprise? Um, if I say enterprise, what do you mean with that? Different people have different definitions of enterprise. As a gateway, I don't think there's anyone that could argue the enterprise-ness of this device, if there's such a word. Even most of the Reddit users unanimously agreed on this device's value proposition, which I think is a first for Reddit. Basically, this is Ubiquiti's first real step into the enterprise environment. I mean, sure, they've still had the enterprise switches, etc., for a while, and they continue to be around, but this is a massive focus on um, extra capabilities that are required in enterprise spaces. So let's get into the specifications of this. So firstly, obviously, it's a network appliance. It does not run Protect. It does not have any of the access capabilities, etc. It is purely running the network application. Obviously, the primary focus of this device is to function as an internet gateway and a security device. That security component is extremely important, and that is a massive focus point for Ubiquiti as well. I do have a video coming up later in this webinar where I will show the SSL inspection and I'll show you the new security capabilities as well. In terms of the device itself, so it's got a massive 18-core ARM processor with 16 gigs of RAM. As a network appliance, I think that's pretty crazy. I remember still 2-core processors being used in a lot of switching devices, etc., just a few years ago. So this is it's pretty crazy to think about. And the reason for this emphasis on processing power is because we need to be able to intercept the traffic going across our network and do packet inspection, etc. So that requires a lot of processing power. In terms of connectivity, so the device itself has two WAN ports. One of them is a 25 gig SFP, and the other one is a 2.5 gig RJ45. So the SFP is SFP28, just as an FYI. And basically, this allows you to use this in a fairly broad range of applications. So if your provider is giving you SFP connectivity or fiber connectivity, you can use it in that style. Alternatively, if you just have a simple modem or router in front of the gateway, or some sort of connectivity option that relies on normal Ethernet 2.RJ45, then you can do that as well. So it's basically ideal for both large customers and smaller ones as well. So that SFP port is capable of doing a full 25 gigabits per second. If you turn on IPS and IDS, which is obviously packet inspection, etc., it reduces the throughput down as it would have to, but it takes it down to 12.5 gigabit per second, which is pretty insane. We've seen the specifications from competing devices, and if you spec for spec match this up to competitors, you're going to be paying 4 to, at the upper edges, 10 times the amount of what this thing costs. It is insane to see this level of performance at this price point. Of course, it does multi-WAN as well with load balancing. So really, really high reliability, ultra high uptime. You can do up to 5,000 connected network client devices across one of these appliances. 500 plus connected Unify devices. And then another big thing is a hot swappable PSU. So hot swappable power supplies has been a big request from a lot of people, and these now actually start utilizing that. The standout feature to me, though, is the SSL inspection and anti-malware sandboxing. So there's other stuff as well, such as shadow mode with VRRP, which we can talk about in a second, but the SSL inspection is a big game changer. So we're going to drill down into these features in a second, but basically those are the ones that stand out. So I have a question for you here, and that is, does your ISP even support WAN connectivity at these rates? So if I tell you we can do 25 gigabits per second on WAN, does your ISP actually have the capability to provide that? If you are the ISP, then you need to start thinking about the growth of WAN connectivity. Obviously, this is a larger scale device, so it's not going to be used in your business with 3 people. And obviously, you have the ability to charge more for that WAN connectivity, but this is where we are going to. So ultra high throughput, even with IDS and IPS turned on. So really meant for scale. And the next thing we can take a look at here is the security and networking features. So in terms of security, obviously it's still a next-gen application aware stateful firewall, so NGFW as they call it. I can still do the stuff that we've all seen and used before, so the signature-based threat management, so IPS, IDS. We've all utilized the content and domain filtering. Ad blocking's been around for a while. Country-based restrictions, so we can lock our traffic to specific regions. We can identify the devices that are connecting to our network, and Ubiquiti is really good at doing that and showing those devices in a nice, neat way. And now something that's very new as well is you now have the ability to do SNAT, DNAT, and even NAT pooling as well. So they're adding a lot of capabilities onto the device. Then the big one there is SSL and TLS decryption. So I'm going to talk you through that in a moment. And another big one is sandboxing for anti-malware environments. That's still very new. I don't really have a working demo of that, so I can't really show that sandboxing, but I do have a screenshot to show you what that looks like. In terms of the networking side of things, so VRP, I'm going to talk about that in a second. Dynamic routing, so Ubiquiti has recently added on OSPF and BGP capabilities directly into these devices. They have had OSPF as part of their technology stack for a while now. It's just been under a different name. We're going to again see that in a moment. WAN load balancing failover, we've all relied on that multiple times. Quality of service, bandwidth monitoring, policy-based routing with super intuitive firewalls, secure SD-WAN, auto site-to-site VPNs, and then there's loads of options around your VPN types as well. So we also have to just talk about Ubiquiti's firewall capabilities. Ubiquiti, again, I have to commend them on this, has made it super simple to set up your firewalls, even in advanced modes. So I've worked on many competing brands. It's very easy to mess this up and lock yourself out of a system accidentally. I think everyone attending today can probably agree with that. Basically, your firewalls can be really troublesome, or at least for me it is, to kind of visualize how these rules stack on top of each other and how they relate to one another. The GUI in Ubiquiti is super easy to use. The filters make it so much easier to figure out what's set up and on which network. It's very flexible as well. I love how simple this options is, or these options are, and how quickly we can create firewall rules. So I mentioned VRRP before, and Ubiquiti's emphasis on maximum reliability and uptime. So with the introduction of the EFG, we have VRP introduced along with it. So VRP stands for Virtual Router Redundancy Protocol. And what that allows us to do is, if one of the routers goes down, fail over to the next router automatically, or gateway. So we've had this ability through shadow mode on the Ubiquiti UDMs for a little while, but that has always required manual intervention. With the introduction of the EFG, this is an automated failover process. So if the primary gateway goes down for any reason, it can fail over to the secondary one within a matter of a couple of seconds, and there's no actions that you need to take in order for the connectivity to continue to remain up. So if you want to replace these devices, essentially what you do is you pull out the primary one that's failed, you nominate the secondary one as the primary, or you promote it to it, and then you just pull it out, replace it with an EFG, and you rebuild that setup. So it's extremely quick to do this. And now as well, we obviously have that hot swap power supply unit as well in these devices, and you do get alerts if the PSUs die as well. So really big emphasis on uptime and reliability. I have to mention here that we're not going to do an entire rundown of the GUI of the EFG. I'm going to show you guys the SSL inspection, etc. in a moment. But for the most part, it looks almost exactly the same as the UDMs, etc. Again, it speaks to the consistency of Ubiquiti. The client traffic and data analytics looks very similar to how you already see it in the UDMs, etc. The one key difference here is that the UDMs, etc., typically group all of the SSL and TLS traffic in the inspection page just as a single view. So it just says the traffic type is SSL or TLS. You don't have the ability to drill down into that. With the EFG, we add that ability onto it so we can actually see what the traffic type is. Of course, SNMP monitoring continues to be available as well. So as I mentioned before, I don't have the malware sandboxing available in my EFG environment just yet. I think it's still in alpha level access, but this is basically what it's going to look like. So it's super simple, shows you the devices, the counterpart that they're connecting to, and the estimated threat level or associated threat level. Again, very easy to use and drill down into. I don't have very much information on how this is going to work just yet, but as soon as this becomes available, we will do a full training video on that as well. Of course, we still have the ability to do secure SD-WAN connectivity through SiteMagic. And again, this is a very important thing for businesses at this scale. If you're looking at deploying an EFG, you're probably going to want to have multiple sites connected up to it. And SiteMagic allows this capability. As a brief overview, SiteMagic is basically just OSPF, but in a very simplified interface, and it makes it so much easier and faster. We don't have to worry about uh, how the neighboring is set up, etc., etc. All of that is just very simply set up. With the new capabilities added in around OSPF, we do have more granular control over that, and I know Ubiquiti is working on increasing the depth of the OSPF capabilities and BGP. So before we start this video on SSL inspection, I just want to mention that this to me is the main standout feature of this device. I want to give you guys a little bit of a rundown of how it looks and how it works. Just keep in mind, please, that this is early access firmware, so it might be slightly different to when you get the device into your hands. Just mentioning that straight off the bat. So this is Next AI, and basically it is Ubiquiti's SSL inspection. So you have a couple of different options. So you can set up a very simple inspection method, or you can drill down into this with different profiles if you wish. So first option we have here is, what do we want to inspect? Are we going to inspect all the networks, or are we going to inspect specific network types? So if I go edit this, I can select a specific network. It doesn't have per user capabilities yet. It is based on a network level. I can also choose what the traffic type is that I'm going to be inspecting, and I can create different profiles if I wish. So let's say, for example, I am just saying I'm going to inspect all of the traffic, or I'm only going to inspect certain domains. It's completely up to you on how you want to do that. You can add a domain into that if you wish to say, I only want to inspect traffic that is going to this specific domain. Depending on what you set it to, it can either be included or excluded. So I can say I want to inspect all traffic except for the one going to, for example, my bank, because I don't want my secure traffic to be intercepted by a third party in the middle that is going to my bank. Because yes, you can actually see all the links and all the traffic. It is getting intercepted by the device. So we need to be, I'm going to pause the video here slightly to make a specific mention of this. And Ubiquiti give you lots of notifications around this in the interface. We need to be very mindful of what we are inspecting, keeping in mind that we can see all of the traffic, all of the links that are used, all of the content that is being pulled out of that link, and we can basically get a lot of information about what our users are doing. We can also see queries, so we can see how people are searching, etc. So treat this with a lot of care, because there is potential to have legal ramifications around the types of traffic that you are looking into. So continuing on from there, Basically, you can create actions around what you want to do with specific types of traffic. If you get a query, what do you want to do with it? Do you want to track that query? So if someone searches for something that they shouldn't, do you want to track it? Do you want to block it? You can also block specific file types, or you can even block specific URLs as well. So again, these are manual actions that you can take. And in the example I'm going to give you here, I'm going to say track and block, and I'm going to select Leader Academy, for example, as a site that my users shouldn't be able to access. So I'm going to add this in. It's a super easy method to do this. I just need to give it a name as well. So go block Leader Academy, the evil Leader Academy. And basically that rule is now created, and I can go, okay, I'm going to block specific URLs, or I can take this a step further as well and go to categories. And I can say I want to block specific category types of URLs. So you can see the different options there, loads of different options. What's exactly included with that is not really published just yet. I have a suspicion Ubiquiti will release a document on that. In this instance, I'm just saying no weather for you. No one gets any weather. And basically, that's going to be part of the actions or sites that I block as a result of this. The other thing as well that we need to be cognizant of is how we treat invalid or untrusted sites, or sites that we treat as high risk or medium risk, or whatever we prefer, or even if it's an invalid domain, you can say we want to block those sites by default. Okay, so I've applied the settings, but the one thing that is extremely important to understand here is how the SSL certificate works. So I'm gonna pause the video in a second when this comes up, but essentially what this is we need to, for every user that we want to inspect the traffic on, we must install a SSL certificate into the actual device. So when it's connecting to my Wi-Fi network or to my physical network, that SSL certificate needs to be in place in order to be able to decrypt that traffic. Otherwise, the client device's traffic will not be decrypted. It is an extremely easy process. I mean, with macOS and Windows, I did this in under a minute. It is extremely, extremely fast to do it in. You basically download the certificate. In Windows, you just double click it. You say you install it into a specific directory, and job done. You can also install this on iOS and Android as well if you want to decrypt that traffic as part of it. So with all of that created, we want to see how this traffic gets viewed. And the way we do this is through the inspection page. So it's part of the same GUI that we've again used previously. It's just called inspection. And as we can see, this is all the queries coming from the tablet that I've set up in this environment. This tablet is basically every site that I've searched, every link that I've gone to, every login that I've tried, everything is listed through this. If you have multiple clients, you can drill down into a specific client to do that. You can also see, so this is the allowed list. You can also get a blocked list and see the queries as well. So this is just a little bit of a drill down. So it shows you the URL that was accessed, the client device, the counterpart IP address, the source IP address, and I can very easily at a glance also just choose to block a connection if I wish to. So if I say I don't want Alex to go to Leader Systems, then I can block either the source IP, destination IP, or even just the domain name as well if I want to apply that to a bunch of users. So super easy to go do this. In terms of the blocked content, so if I blocked a specific thing that my user shouldn't be able to access, it will show up on the blocked list, and it basically says, okay, Alex had a query. He was trying to reach Leader Academy, but that site was blocked, and it will give me again a granular amount of information about the request and how it's gone through. So loads of information contained within this. Again, it's quite scary with what you can actually see. And then the last one that I'm going to show here as well is the queries page. So queries, I'm just going to skip forward slightly. Where's queries? Let's see. So queries is basically your Google searches or your search results. So if I typed in Leader Systems, it will show up in this page as well. It's pretty crazy with the amount of detail that you can see in this, and Ubiquiti are expanding on this functionality as well. So you can think of the implications of this, and you can also think of like what you can see and what you can kind of flesh out as your firewall solution to block specific types of content in specific environment types. I'm just cognizant of time here, but one of the last things I just want to mention is that Ubiquiti are looking to enhance their security as well, and they're doing this through enhanced threat updates. So basically what these are is it's a security subscription that you're going to be able to bolt onto the EFG. At the moment, it appears like this is only going to be available on the EFG, but essentially it is advanced threat analysis through updated threat signatures. Basically, it looks like Ubiquiti are going through um, through to either Microsoft or other security providers to grab updated security definitions on a very regular basis. So Ubiquiti says every day they will update the threat database by 30 to 50 new additions to ensure protection against zero-day attacks and immediate threats. So stuff that gets released frequently. Obviously, if they want to access this content, they have to pay for those security definitions. And as a result of this, this looks like it is going to be a paid subscription. But obviously that has to be charged for because they need to get those updated definitions, and they're relying on industry experts to do that. It's very early days for this. It is currently only available in the US and Canada, but I expect this to roll out to the rest of the world pretty shortly. So, like I said, currently it's exclusive to the EFG, but it might go onto the other devices. The only thing I can think of is possible processing power limitations on the other cloud gateways that might limit this. I'm going to jump into the Q&A in a second, but just want to lastly mention, sorry, I know I've run out of time, but I just want to lastly mention that there is a process to buying the EFG. It's not like the other products where you can just buy it off the shelf. It's basically a registration project. So we treat every EFG sale as a project. So we need basic project information. So what you're planning to deploy, basic information around the reseller, basic information around the end customer, so that we can register that as a deal. So and basically what this will allow us to do is assist you to best design the solution and essentially give you protected access to certain things around this as well. So there's a bit more that goes into this, but obviously it's not something you're going to be selling into a small company. So I think most large businesses would kind of expect this to be a project-based deployment in any way. If you have any questions around anything that you've seen on the EFG, or if you have questions around the program or anything like that, please feel free to reach out to us. We have pre-sale support as well. So if you're looking to design a solution, please do reach out to us at ui-support@leadersystems.com.au, and we are very eager to help you with that. With that being said, I'm going to quickly jump into the Q&A. If there is any questions that I can't answer here today, I am going to refer back to you from our directly after the webinar, basically just on email. But let me quickly see if you guys have any questions. Feel free to jump into there at any point.